Take me to Pleasant Avenue.
You know, they still don't take too kindly to color folks in East Harlem. Last 6 blocks of the old country they got up here.
You know what they call Negroes on Pleasant Avenue?
What?
Dead.
Wow. That's a clip from the most highly talked about series today now, the one and only Godfather of Harlem, which premiered last night on Epix, which is about a true story of an infamous crime boss by the name of Bumpy Johnson, who in the early 60s came home after a 10-year bid to find Harlem in shambles, East Harlem being ran by Italian folks in the mafia. And it goes into his relationship with one of the one and only Malcom X and their friendship from the beginnings until they became these prominent figures. And as we talked about when we had the one and only Chris Brancato on the show, how the relationship between politicians and people who were in the underworld needed to go hand in hand back in those times. This story is an extremely interesting story that is being told now, and one of my good friends, Heather, who I've known for years. I've known this man for years. His brother, his father, is that really your blood brother?
Yep, Father MC.
Father MC. Treat them like they want to be treated. You should treat them right. Yeah, I did want to be a singer, but I also saw this man just on different sets, whether with Viacom, whether it was BET or MTV, whether he was doing Juice or Poetic Justice as an actor, Cold Blue, all these different things that he's done as a producer. He's always been in the mix. He's always been boots on the ground, and he always has something up his sleeve. He's like a brother to my sister, Onika Day, who speaks highly of him daily. And he's here with us today, the creator and executive producer of the TV series Godfather of Harlem, Markuann Smith, is here.
With the fly jacket on.
Thank you,
nice.
Sway. Thank you, Heather.
Yes.
Looking nice.
Looking fly.
Your story could be a series in itself. Would you agree?
Yeah, man. It's been 18 years, brother. Like 18 years of a journey of I made a promise to a little old lady by the name of Markuann Johnson, and I used to go up to Lenox Terrace every Sunday and sit down with her in her house, and she used to tell me these magical stories of Harlem, how she used to walk down the street and hear Sam Cooke coming out of transistor radio, or seeing Nat King Cole getting a shape up at Sugar Ray Robinson's barbershop, or even walking past 125th Street and seeing James Brown name on a marquee. But she also used to tell me about her grandfather. But her grandfather raised her like that was his daughter, and his name was Ellsworth Raymond Johnson. And, you might have known about Bumpy Johnson through the Cotton Club or American Gangster or Escape from Alcatraz or even Hoodlum. But a lot of people didn't know that Bumpy was also a philosopher. He played chess. He read Nietzsche. He read Shakespeare. He was the only African American that could sit down with the mob, whether it would be Maya Lansky, Lucky Luciano, Frank Costello, Bugsy Siegel. They all respected him. He came from Charleston, South Carolina. He's a Geechee. He migrated to Harlem. These guys, they came from Sicily and they grew up in East Harlem, so they all were familiar with each other.
Yeah.
And she just wanted me to tell the world about her story, and I made a promise to her that I would do my best to get the story out there.
And this is how the series was created.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's her grandfather.
Yeah.
Is she still with us?
No, she passed away in 2016. She didn't get an opportunity to see it, but what I do love is that she got to meet everybody. She got to meet Chris, Paul, Nina Yang Bon Jovi, everyone that's on the production. She actually sat down and she gave them the green light and was like, go ahead, please, because I really want to get this story done.
What was important for her? Because when you hear the name Bumpy Johnson, you just think that criminal element. You think, the criminal world. You think ex-con. You think, all these different stigmas that was put on his name and legacy. What was it important for you to let the world know, and what does she want the world to know about her grandfather?
Well, the story is not about the glorification of Bumpy Johnson. It's more like the education of Bumpy Johnson, how he came home from Alcatraz and saw a different world in front of him. Like, America was built on immigrants. We all migrated here, and Bumpy did whatever he had to do by any means necessary. Like in every hood, you got people that buy book bags for kids or taking the great adventure, but that doesn't justify what they did. And she didn't want to justify what Bumpy did, but she also wanted to show the world a different part of who her grandfather was. He was a family man. You know, he came here and he wanted to become a lawyer. And the birth cert said, you know, we don't get financial aid to colored people. And he said, okay, this is going to be I'm going to make you remember this. And then he turned to a life of crime.
Turned to a life of crime.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because we hear about this. We have Frank Lucas on our show.
Right.
And you hear about these notorious figures, and all you hear is the surface, but you don't know how they got there, what is involved. Some of the most notorious people I know from Oakland are the most brilliant people you ever want to meet.
I was just with Darrell Reid, and you know, for him to come home after doing 28 years straight and still have the mind and the smartness, and it's just amazing. Like people are put in situations and they have to, you know, like when I'm talking to Darrell, that's, you know, this is off the subject. When I'm talking to Darrell and I'm like, you did 28 years in jail, and your mentals are still there and everything like that. Like you could have been working on Wall Street. You know what I'm saying? So you know, it's just amazing. Like when people are put in certain situations, how they turn situations into a bad situation into
a good situation.
Yeah.
Darrell Reid, I know you and I saw each other. I was hosting a screening for a movie in Times Square. This was over maybe about 2 years ago. And and you were telling me that you and Darrell were in talks about doing his story.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the results of that?
Well, we're working on it right now. You know, it's very important to Darrell because he's Oakland all the way, man. He's the Bay all the way. He wants to make sure that it's told the right way. And it's the story that I want to tell is not just about Darrell, but about the city of Oakland through Darrell's eyes. You know, dealing with the Black Panthers, dealing with the Hells Angels, dealing with, you know,
the police department.
You know what I'm saying? Dealing with the pimps that were in the 80s, and you know, a lot of people don't know that Black Panthers. Some of them were on drugs themselves. You know what I'm saying? So it's just about getting the A story, the B story, and the C story, and telling a great story like we tried to do with Godfather of Harlem.
You with the Godfather of Harlem, did you get any backlash for telling this story of Bumpy Johnson? Because no matter how many layers you put on it, people want to see it one way.
Yeah,
they're gonna keep it that way.
Well, we tried to make it as authentic as possible. For the things that I didn't know, I brought in a Professor James Small. Professor James Small is an African American historian. He used to be Malcom X's sister's bodyguard. So from the story where we tell them about the FOIs and the Muslims and the Muslim girl training, we let Professor Smalls handle that. He's everybody knows him. He does these living color DVDs that are on YouTube, and he takes people on a pilgrimage to Mecca every year. So I tried to make sure the authenticity was right with that. I did interviews with a lot of old cats, man, like 89. My iPhone is full of cats that's over 75 years old.
Tell me a story that you got from them that just blew you away.
You know, a lot of these older cats say they would rather shave, if they could, they'll shave 30 years off their life to go back to the 60s. You know what I'm saying? You know, there's a part in there about a cat named Big Dick Buster, right?
Big Dick Buster.
Big Dick Buster, right? Okay. Now, Big Dick Buster is a real character because in Harlem, they police themselves. So if a young lady had got raped or anything of that sort, they would tell them to go to the precinct, pick out the picture, and then they would handle their own street justice. And this is coming from an older cat by the name of Chisholm. He's still alive. He's 94 years old.
Wow.
He said that Big Dick Buster, they had on the payroll. So if your wife, your aunt, your sister, anybody got raped, they'll bring Big Dick Buster in. And he said it'll be an ungodly sound that you'll hear from 145th to 150th Street when Big Dick Buster comes in the room. So these are certain things that people used to.
What do he do, man?
Ah, man.
Yeah.
You saw Oz?
Yeah.
So Oz on steroids,
So
man.
Big Dick Buster would rape those who would rape women.
Absolutely,
Oh, God.
yeah.
Big Dick Buster.
Yeah. So if you see the first episode, that's a true story. That's not something that we just glamorize. This is coming from, you know, from the older cats. You know what I'm saying? They govern themselves. It's like, you know, you being in the Muslim community and somebody chops off your hand for stealing. You know what I'm saying? So this is how they govern themselves in the community.
Wow.
Hey, that Big Dick Buster threw you off? Have had a question until you said Big Dick Buster.
Because I'm just trying to figure out how do you find somebody like that in particular that would just want to attack men in that way, like you. But you heard this story more than once to get it confirmed.
Yeah, but it's not.
Wow, that's crazy.
He's not attacking, man. He's
attacking justice straight. No, I get that.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So, yeah, I've got those stories. Like I got stories about Red Fox. Red Fox was a stick-up kid. Yeah.
From
talking
Sanford
about
and
him.
Fred G.
Really?
Sanford.
Yeah,
Real life, he was a sticker
He
kid.
used to
In
run around with
Harlem?
Malcolm X.
What they used to say? What they say? You told me the story. What's the story?
No, the Red Fox was a stick-up kid. Cab Calloway was a gambler that used to.
My great grandfather.
Cab Calloway.
And I play
They said-
poker.
no.
Maybe that's what it.
No, they said no. You know what they said about
Dots.
you know what they said about Cab Calloway? That if you sat there and played poker with him and he was losing, he'll pull out his gun and take his money back. Nobody wanted to play a gamble with Cab Calloway. Red Fox wasn't invited to anybody parties because he cursed a lot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Wow.
You know my last name Calloway. I play poker.
Yeah. So.
And I never lose. No. Markuann Smith is here. Tracy or DB, who you had
Both of us.
Okay, go for it.
Well, Markuann, I'm wondering because your father being in the entertainment industry and then also you being on stage with Puff as
Well, not my father, my brother.
Your brother, excuse
Father
me.
MC.
Treat him
Yes.
like that.
Excuse me, but just
Yeah.
being so close to the entertainment industry,
Yeah.
what do you think made you gravitate towards movies and television more than like hip hop?
Well, I was raised in Harlem, but I grew up in Far Rockaway, right? And if you know anything about Far Rockaway, that's the last stop on the A train. You don't want to fall asleep, and for real, Far Rockaway is a whole different beast. And I started watching movies in a dark room because that kind of like shielded me from gunshots outside. So I started watching movies like Rebel Without a Cause on the waterfront. Down these mean streets, things like that. So it was just a place to escape from. And then I started touring with my older brother when he got signed. And when he got signed, my first tour was with Second to None, AMG, High Five.
Wait, hold up.
Wow.
Stop.
Wow.
These all Second to None, AMG, down with DJ Quick.
Yeah.
These are West Coast groups.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
And but then High Five.
Yeah, High Five. Yeah, absolutely. And that's how I was able to see different cultures, And like Pac was a roadie for Digital at the time. That was a good friend of mine. Tretch was a roadie for Latifah. And I was a roadie for my brother. I was carrying big coffins. I mean,
wait, hold
before
up.
it was dat tapes.
You got to explain what coffins are. Okay. You see, that's where we at now,
Yeah,
Mark.
right.
Yeah.
Coffins is like with the 1200s.
Techniques.
Turntables.
Turntables.
Okay.
Technique turntables. And I had to make sure those were off on a bus, before they were dat tapes and stuff like that.
Right.
So things like that gave me an experience of seeing a different world of traveling and being when you're on that tour bus and everything is passing by you, you leaving something behind you, that you don't want to be at. So I started gravitating to movies on, like that.
Did he teach you how to be a hype man?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What did he tell you?
He came on the bus one day and he was like, yo, because they used to call me Silk. That was my nickname. He was like, yo, father, you need to bring Silk up here because all the girls be loving. Because I used to come outside and I used to front like I was Dalvin from Jodeci on stage. I'd be like, ooh yeah,
Wow, my God.
And so Diddy told me, he's like, yo, he used to run up and down the tour bus mad hype. I was like, yo, what's wrong with this dude? And we started, showing me how to hype the crowd up, get the crowd motivated and things of that sort.
What do you say to do, though? Give me pointers.
Just throw your hands in the air, wave them like you just don't care. Nothing crazy, but you know what I'm saying? But it was just the hypeness, just to, he'll have me wearing Doc Marten boots and oak tree suits. You remember Oak Tree?
Yeah.
I would be wearing oak
yeah.
tree suits and Zodiac shoes and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Play the part, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Yeah, Markuann Smith is here. He's the creator, executive producer of the TV series Godfather of Harlem, which is on Epix now.
Now I could go back to my real question, Mark. So for the talented people that's just listening to the show and that's going to see this video and this conversation, what would you tell them? Because everybody has these ideas. You meet so many kids, they got these ideas. They want to make movies. They want to make the next Power. They want to do this. How can you encourage them in some kind of way? Because there's a lot of steps to it. You just didn't wake up doing this.
Well, first of all, don't look at my breakthrough. Look what I've been through.
Yeah.
Because success, a lot of people want success, but I always say that certain people aren't ready for success. Because are you ready to eat ramen noodles and tuna fish? Are you ready to take a buddy pass knowing that you got a meeting at Netflix on Monday morning and you hoping that you can get on board on that flight Sunday to make that meeting? Are you ready to sleep on somebody's floor or couch because you can't afford a hotel? See, with me, I didn't have a plan B. I always had a plan A. I believe when you had a plan B, you plan to fail. So you can either chase your pension or your passion. I was all about chasing my passion. So you got to have tough skin in this game. Like, for real, you're going to get 1,000 no's before one yes. And Sway could tell you, you know, I used to come to him like, yo, Sway, I got this great idea. I got this great idea all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's all about creating and curating your dreams. Because if you don't, you just be here. Because I can't tell you, I only can tell you my story, but I tell people keep dreaming. Like, dreams are real. Dreams are a reality. When I got my deal with ABC, they told me as an actor and as an executive producer and getting this show sold, you might as well get struck by lightning twice. So I got struck by lightning twice.
Yes, you did, man. Markuann Smith. Set them dreams, put them goals to it, and put it to action, though. Because some dudes just dream their whole life away. Their whole life is just they living in a dream, but ain't taking action. I know for a fact, and you're right, he came up to me a ton of times over the years. I'll see him on sets. I didn't even at one point it was like, well, what are you doing? I didn't even know what Markuann was doing.
Oh, got you.
You know, whether he's working on a set or in front of the camera. But he's always working. You know, so congratulations, man.
Thank you, brother.
That's dope.
Markuann, I want to ask because I live in Harlem now, but my mother, her aunts, and my grandparents all grew up in Harlem, so I remember what it looked like before, like the Old Navy and the Magic Johnson Theater were around and all that. So how difficult is it right now because you're shooting a period piece, which is based so long ago that it looks nothing like what Harlem is like now? You got to get wardrobe, cars, like buildings accurate and things like that. So what kind of obstacles or challenges is it to make sure that everything looks the way Harlem did back then?
Well, we did out of 100%, we did about 65% on stage at in Brooklyn and Greenpoint at Broadway stages. We did that, and certain parts of Harlem is like Stravers Row. The architect is still there. Then we made sure that we got the picture cars and things of that sort. But even when they shot The Deuce, they had to close down a whole block. So what you do is find a block and you control that block for the period of your season that you're shooting the show on. Like Paris Blues is still the same Paris Blues in Harlem.
Damn sure is.
It's still the same, like from the 50s.
What is Paris Blues, Rich?
It's a jazz bar inside Harlem on 7th Avenue.
Thank you.
Now that it's blown up, that's one of my little spots I go and hang out in.
It was a little low spot. We've been there before. That's what it. Yeah. So
Paris Blues is like, you know, they still got rum from 1960 in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. And the old timers usually coming in, but there's little tidbits you can find places. I mean, I miss Lenox Lounge. I wish we was able to get to shoot in Lenox Lounge.
Yeah,
you know
man. We were there when it closed.
Yeah.
Well, we were like there a week before it closed. Everybody moved to Red Rooster.
I know, man. But they still got the Teresa Hotel where the White Castle is at. That's the Teresa Hotel. You know, the Audubon is still up there. You know, but it's like shooting anywhere. You know, architecture is going to change, but you just find that block and you just navigate it and make it happen.
Okay, Rich, nice.
First, let me congratulate you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
We've been friends a long time.
Absolutely.
I watched your walk. I watched you beat the pavement. So your hard work is definitely paid off.
Thank you.
We did a viewing last night at Harlem Mist with the cast, and he came out. Raekwon was there. Morgan Heritage came through. It was a ton of people that came out to support. You should have saw the amount of people. It was probably about 400 to 500 people that came out to support him last night.
That's
so
dope.
Kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
I love Markuann. They happy you on too.
I want to ask you about your relationship with Forest Whitaker because I saw you. Obviously, he's the lead, and you play a member of his gang. Yeah. And putting this picture together, I'm sure had to be hard. Was he your first choice, or how did that come about?
So what happened was this: an individual by the name of Bernard Alexander, who used to manage EPMD.
I know Bernard.
Individual. But the people might not know.
No, well, Bernard is he's like my uncle. You know, I'm his play nephew. You know, he's worked with the Fugees. He's worked with 50 Cent. Worked with everybody. And I was sitting in my apartment. I was like, yo, I got to get this project done. And he introduced me to Jim Atchison. Jim Atchison is actually Forest Whitaker's manager's husband, and that's my business partner. Now, Forest wasn't the first choice. But Jim called me one night and was like, how would you feel about Forest Whitaker playing Bumpy Johnson? I said, man, get out of here. And I hung up the phone. And I never met Jim before. So Jim and his wife flew out to New York to meet me. I brought them to Lenox Terrace to meet Margaret Johnson. Then they went out to Sylvia's and had some soul food. So now I got 3 white people in Harlem. You know what I'm saying? 2 white people and Jim and Joanne's son. And they were like, yo, this story is amazing. Let's make this happen. And we had to do the script. The script was like, it took us about 1.5 years to get the script right. It was like about 10 or 11 drafts. And then Forrest was like, you know, I really like this project. I want to attach myself as a producer. but I have to read the script to make sure that this is I can really embody it. He read it and he was like, let's go with it. So he trained physically, and myself and him, we were going back doing lines or throwing lines together.
You were throwing lines to Forest Whitaker?
Yeah, man, yeah.
Well, did you stun on us right there?
Pop that collar. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, when you in the playground with people like John Carl Esposito and Forest Whitaker and Vincent D'Onofrio, they smell fresh blood. So you gotta like man up real fast, man. Like
they'll embarrass you in the scene.
Absolutely. I saw you in a movie, brother.
Yeah,
I forgot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Did I get embarrassed?
Nah.
Oh, okay, all right. We had Chris Brancato come up here.
Yeah.
And he was what was Chris's role? Was he a writer?
Chris is the showrunner and the creator of Narcos, as well as the creator of the Godfather of Harlem.
Okay.
I initiated the process and brought it to Chris, and Chris was working on another project at the time called Las Sirenas, and Las Sirenas didn't get picked up. And we had another writer, his partner Paul Eckstein, that was writing, and Chris was like, I already told this project about Bumpy. I said, but let's do it a different way. You told the Harlem Renaissance about Dutch Schultz, with Lawrence Fishburne, Vanessa Williams, Cicely Tyson, but we haven't told the 60s. Because actually, if you think about it, the Harlem Riots is Al Ferguson. Cassius Clay is Al Colin Kaepernick. All the movements from the LGBTQ movements to the Me Too movements to the Black Lives Matter movement started in the 60s. So everything is parallel to what's happening in 1963 Harlem is parallel to what's happening in 2019 Harlem.
What we say earlier about the code is in the past.
Yes.
This is what he had to say about what he learned during this project.
Crime for the Irish, for the Italians, for the Germans, for African Americans, all has in some ways worked as a stepping stone, a foundational stepping stone where people climb an economic ladder that leads to political power and then social and cultural power. Now, the African American experience is different than the other immigrant groups because the migration here was involuntary. So there's so many differences, but there are also similarities to the way second-class citizen groups fight to become part of the fabric of the country. So on the show, you watch as groups move up in the tapestry of what America is, and oftentimes crime is the first step to advancing in civil rights.
I mean, you trace back some of the biggest families in America's history. The Kennedys, how they start, Mike Muse? The Kennedy family. They were running bootleggers.
Liquor.
Yeah, right?
The Bush.
The Bush, what?
Grandfather Bush was a hustler.
Okay.
The Carnegies, the Still, Carnegies, the Rockefellers.
The Rockefellers. They all started doing some criminal activities.
This country was built on a hustle,
Yeah. And so this makes sense, man. We got people on the phone lines. Markuann Smith is here. If you want to reach him, give out your social.
At MARKUANN, that's my Instagram, MARKUANN.
I want to make sure I'm saying your name right. Is it I Parquet, or how do you say your name?
A Parquet, man. A Parquet.
A Parquet. What was your question?
I ain't really have a question. I just wanted to say shout out to Markuann for his words of encouragement, talking about how you can't never give up and stuff like that. About how people want to see the successful part of things, but they don't want to go through the struggles and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of people need to hear that, because a lot of people give up when times get hard for real. Like, even myself, I got down a couple of times, but I already knew I was going to bounce back. And it's like keeping that mindset. That's what you got to do.
Man, that's great. That's great to hear, man.
Yeah.
And even Marquann's story, like a lot of us, man, you got kicked out of your mom's house as a youth.
Yeah.
So you was in the streets, and he came from bottom up. And look at him now. I watch his work ethic. A Parquet, you a citizen though.
Sway in the morning, homie.
Kevin and Far Rockaway, what you want to say?
Far Rock?
Yo, what up? How y'all doing?
Far
man?
Rock.
I want to give a shout out, man. I'm from
Far
the
Rock.
40s, you heard?
Okay.
Yeah, I want to salute you, man. Far Rockaway's a jungle out there, and you made it out. I made it out too. And I hear everybody making stories about Harlem and Coney Island. We need a Far Rock story. There's a straight jungle out there, and we just gotta have a story. And I used to see your peoples coming through the 40s, and he always used to be fly with the matching travel fox with the matching suit. And Moet, his backup dancer, used to be my next door neighbor. You heard?
Okay.
So yeah, I want to hear a good story out of Far Rockaway, rags to riches, man. Make up something, but we got to put Far Rockaway on the map.
I mean,
shout out to Stack Bundles, Jinx Drugs.
He said make up
Everybody
something.
come from Far Rock.
Kev, you said make up something, damn it.
Make up something.
But you know, Markuann is a success story. His brother is a success story. It's a lot of folks that are success stories. We had Giancarlo Esposito come by, who plays Adam Clayton Powell Jr. In this series, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the things he alluded to that should be covered in this series, perhaps, is the rivalry between a lot of civil rights leaders and how some civil rights leaders used to borrow speeches and energy off of other ones. They were biting each other, right? And he talked about that relationship with Adam Clayton Powell Jr. and MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. What did you learn about that?
Well, even like I met Charles Rangel, right? These guys are like 80 years old, like
former senator. What was he?
Former congressman.
Congressman. Yeah, yes. Thank you, Mike Muse. All right, go ahead.
And these guys, like, they're real territorial from where they speech, from the way they dress. It's like wow, like you could imagine Jesse Jackson beefing with Al Sharpton, like, oh, Al was wearing that bow tie the wrong way the other day. Like, these are real conversations that really happen, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you heard how he went? Oh, I do that too. You know what I'm saying? He's trying. You know what I'm saying? So, Adam Clayton Powell was a very flashy dresser. He loved women. He was he sipped a couple of things, you know what I'm saying? And Giancarlo brought that out. Like, I never saw Giancarlo's a beast. And him making Adam Clayton Powell the way he is, who was a powerful person in Harlem at the time, but Adam was doing what he was so close to the community. He'll be at 22 West sitting in the back. 22 West is a place that Malcom X and Bumpy Johnson and Adam Clayton Powell used to go to. He'll be back there doing drinking his coffee or there's something what is it? It's alcohol and milk. It's some
Heather?
Don't do that.
Kahlua. No. It's something that they drunk back in the days. It wasn't Kahlua or something, but it was something really strong that he used to drink. And John is a method. He got in the method with Adam. So when you watching it, you really think that this is Adam Clayton Powell right here.
What did he tell you? What did you learn about the dynamic between Adam Clayton Powell Jr. and Martin Luther King Jr.? Like, did y'all find out any specific stories of a speech that somebody might have?
Yeah. Well, Adam in the show, Adam was kind of like upset that Martin was getting the spotlight. There you go. And he mentions that in the writing, you know what I'm saying? I should be up there talking, not Martin Luther King, but they all respected each other, you know what I'm saying? But they all had their own way of bringing the message. Like with Malcolm X he was very radical. Adam Clayton Powell was very flashy. Martin was like, I'm not, turn the other cheek, you know what I'm saying? So it was righteousness. So they had a whole intimacy, all three of those guys. We dealt on Martin a little in the series on the March on Washington. We didn't really get into it, but it was really about Adam's relationship with Malcolm X with the speeches. He was like, my speech is better than your speech. You want to take my church only because I got 40,000 listeners. Malcolm wanted to go to his church and say, you know what, you're poaching my parishioners. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing the dialogue and the playfulness between these two guys.
Mike Muse, would it be fair to say that a lot of these civil rights leaders from that day, you could parallel them to like how rappers compete for that number one slot?
Absolutely. And then also, too, I mean, Marcus, one, good job on Godfather and all the work you're doing and the context you're bringing here to now. But I mean, you have to put also, too, in context, which the Godfather does and what you're doing, too, as well. There wasn't a lot of how we see news now is 24/7, right? And how we have internet and we have the blogs. And so there was always space now for people to get off their platform. But back then, there wasn't. It was limited amount of ink that you could have. You had limited amount of radio time. You had limited amount of television. And as a leader, you all think that you have the best perspective on what you think history should be. be and what civil rights should be and your opinion on it. And so it's natural that they're going to be competing with each other just on the fact alone that it's limited space and opportunity.
Yeah, but it feels like, too, that they also needed each other. Like Adam Clayton Powell Jr. needed MLK, needed Malcolm X in order to be the most effective, right?
You're absolutely right. And including they also needed the Black Panther, right? It's no different than how we always say now, and you can agree to this as well, is that Black people aren't this monolithic thing, right? And we always ask our politicians not to recognize us as such. Back then, we were equally not monolithic. And so we had individuals that appealed to the Black Panther Party, right? There's individuals who were more pro-Malcolm, and then you had individuals who were more pro-Martin Luther King. So we all need each other in order to kind of bring us to the space that we are today. We all need each other in the movement. Even now, we all need each other in the movement. We all need different perspectives and different propositions and different value systems, right? That's how we all advance progress, right? But being so siloed as we're just one entity, that just isn't how progress gets made.
No, that's stagnant. That's living in a box. That's walking down a narrow path.
Cream de mint. Sorry, is it cream de mint?
Yeah, cream de mint. That's what it is. Yeah, there you go.
That's the alcohol habit, you know that?
Yeah, there you go.
That's an acquired taste.
Okay, cream de mint. Okay,
Yeah.
Markuann, man, listen. I'll be with you, man. God's been with you, man.
Thank you.
That journey he's talking about, I've watched it over the years.
It's
you
real.
know,
People
and
got real stories.
But you had
man.
your journey too, coming from the Bay to where you at right now. We all have journeys in this room. You know what I'm saying? It's just about going out there and really not straying off your path.
That's
absolutely,
right.
man.
That's right.
And I heard you're a Scorpio. Karen told me that the other day. Hunter.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I am a Scorpio.
Yeah.
A lot of us are here.
I'm a Scorpio too. November 19th.
There's a lot of freaks in the room, bro.
17.
You're not alone, big freak.
Don't do that.
All right, okay. Hey, Markuann, listen, citizens.
Happy early birthday,
Citizens,
Mark.
this is family. I want y'all to show them family love.
Yes.
I need everybody that you know. Please support this story. It's on Epix, Godfather of Harlem.
Yeah.
Premiered last night. And please support this man.
Yes.
You can follow him on his social at
MarkuAnn.
Thank you, Markuann. Thank you very much.
I like it.
When you do that Darrell Reid story, we'll figure out what my role gonna be in it.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay,
brother.
all right.
You heard me?